Madison Sterling grabs the microphone at Westfield Academy's prom, her tiara glinting under crystal chandeliers. 300 privileged teenagers fall silent as the student body president's voice drips with calculated cruelty. Before we continue celebrating, let's acknowledge our diverse new addition. Her cold blue eyes lock onto a girl in an emerald dress standing alone. Kesha, honey, did you get that dress from the market? It's so shabby. The ballroom freezes. Every phone turns toward Kesha Washington, 17, whose hands remain perfectly still despite the public humiliation. What Madison doesn't know is that those steady hands have never lost a fight. Kesha's emerald gown hides muscles that can drop grown men in seconds. Her calm smile masks a warrior who's learned that sometimes you have to take your place in the world by force. Have you ever been humiliated so publicly that your soul cracked? Have you ever wished you could show them exactly who they're messing with? 3 months earlier, Kesha Washington walked through Westfield Academy's marble halls for the first time, her worn backpack a stark contrast to the Louis Vuitton bag surrounding her. The scholarship letter in her locker felt like both a victory and a target on her back. Her mother, Carmen, had finally landed a job cleaning the administration building after years of unemployment. The position came with one precious benefit. Kesha could transfer from Lincoln High, where gunshots interrupted geometry class and college seemed like a fairy tale. Kesha carries herself with quiet discipline, shoulders straight, eyes observant. Her 4.2 GPA opens doors that her zip code usually keeps locked. Stanford pre-med isn't just a dream. It's her escape route from a cycle of poverty that's trapped her family for generations. But Westfield Academy operates on different rules. Here, your father's donation determines your worth. Legacy admissions are assumed. Summer homes in the Hamptons are casual conversation topics. Kesha learns quickly that academic excellence means nothing when you're surrounded by kids who've never worked for anything. The flashback hits her during chemistry class, watching privileged students treat lab equipment carelessly. She's 12 again, cornered by 3 girls outside Lincoln Middle School. They'd waited until she was alone, knowing she carried the scholarship kid stigma even then. "Your mama can't afford to send you here," the ringleader sneered, shoving Kesha hard against the brick wall. "Go back where you belong." Kesha had run that day, tears burning her cheeks. But Uncle Marcus found her crying on his doorstep 3 hours later. Marcus Thompson, former Golden Gloves boxer turned youth mentor, took one look at his niece's torn shirt and made a decision that would change everything. "Baby girl, the world's gonna try to break you, but I'm gonna teach you how to break back." The gym became Kesha's sanctuary. 5 years of Muay Thai, boxing, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu transformed her from victim to predator. Underground youth circuits knew her as Silent Storm, the girl who never trash-talked but left opponents unconscious. 19 wins, 0 losses, all by knockout or submission. At Westfield, nobody knows about the calluses on her knuckles or the way she unconsciously measures distances between herself and potential threats. They see a quiet scholarship kid trying too hard to fit in. Madison Sterling notices Kesha immediately, the way a shark notices blood in the water. Senator Sterling's daughter has never met a challenge she couldn't buy her way out of. Yale admission, already guaranteed through family connections. Prom queen, campaign funded by daddy's political machine. Student body president, won by promising privileges that only benefit the already privileged. But Kesha represents something Madison can't purchase: authentic achievement. When grades are posted and Kesha's name tops every honors list, Madison feels something she's never experienced: the possibility of being second best. David Parker understands the outsider experience. His parents own a small restaurant, working 16-hour days to afford Westfield's tuition. He recognizes the careful way Kesha navigates social landmines, how she brings lunch from home while others order expensive catering. "You're different," he tells Kesha after she helps him with calculus. "Good difference. This place needs more people who actually earn their spot." Ms. Rodriguez, the school counselor, sees potential in Kesha that goes beyond test scores. As the only Latina faculty member, she understands the weight of representation, the exhaustion of proving yourself worthy of spaces that should welcome everyone. The social hierarchy at Westfield operates like a medieval court. Madison reigns as undisputed queen, surrounded by courtiers who trade loyalty for social protection. Questioning her authority means exile from the only community these kids have ever known. But Kesha doesn't understand the rules yet. She raises her hand in AP history when Madison gives an incorrect answer. She scores higher on the SATs than anyone in Madison's circle. Worst of all, she does it without apology or acknowledgement that she should be grateful for the opportunity. Madison watches this scholarship upstart threaten everything she's built and decides that some lessons need to be taught the hard way. The first attack comes disguised as an accident. Madison's designer heel slips as Kesha walks past her locker, sending textbooks scattering across the hallway. Students step over the mess without helping. "Oops," Madison smiles sweetly. "So clumsy of me." 3 days later, Madison approaches with a steaming latte, deliberately spilling it across Kesha's history homework. 3 hours of civil rights research becomes a brown-stained mess. "I'm so sorry," Madison gasps theatrically. "I'll totally help explain to Mr. Henderson." Her tone suggests the opposite. Kesha stares at the ruined assignment, calculating the exact combination to drop Madison unconscious. Uppercut to solar plexus, right cross to temple. Instead, she breathes deeply and reaches for paper towels. "Accidents happen," Kesha says quietly, meeting Madison's eyes with unflinching calm. Madison interprets restraint as weakness. Over the next week, incidents multiplied. Kesha gets excluded from group projects despite highest grades. Her gym clothes disappear before PE. Someone changes her presentation slides to mocking diversity hire memes. The cafeteria confrontation escalates everything. Madison approaches with phone recording, voice loud enough to carry across the dining hall. "Quick question, Kesha. Do you qualify for free lunch? How poor do you have to be exactly?" Her friends giggle. "I'm just curious about requirements. For educational purposes." The dining hall falls silent. Everyone watches, waiting to see how the scholarship kid handles public humiliation. Kesha chews her sandwich slowly, pulse steady despite building rage. She thinks about Uncle Marcus's words. "Violence isn't the answer, baby girl. But knowing you could defend yourself, that's power." "I work for everything I have," Kesha responds calmly. "Some of us do." Madison uploads the video immediately. Charity Case Chronicles Nambar Westfield Diversity. Within an hour, 50 shares and counting. That night, Kesha pounds Uncle Marcus's heavy bag, combinations flowing like deadly poetry. Each impact releases frustration threatening to consume her. "You're fighting ghosts in here," Marcus observes, "but running from real fights out there." Kesha's gloves freeze mid-punch. "She's trying to destroy me." "Then stop letting her." Marcus unwraps her hands gently. "Show them who they're really dealing with." Madison Sterling has declared war on someone who fights for survival, but she has no idea what's coming next. Madison Sterling sits in her BMW after school, manicured fingers scrolling through Kesha's academic records on her father's Senate laptop. The numbers make her stomach clench with unfamiliar anxiety. Perfect SAT scores, 4.2 GPA, early admission to Stanford's pre-med program pending final transcripts. For 17 years, Madison has never encountered a problem money couldn't solve. But Kesha represents something terrifying, genuine merit threatening Madison's manufactured superiority. If this scholarship girl outperforms her, what does that say about Madison's guaranteed Yale acceptance? Her student council presidency? Her entire identity built on purchased achievements? "She thinks she can just waltz in here and take what's mine," Madison mutters, opening a new Instagram account. Anonymous profiles are perfect for psychological warfare. The memes start flooding social media within hours. Kesha's face photoshopped onto images of maids, janitors, food stamp applications. Hashtag Westfield Charity begins trending locally as Madison's followers amplify the mockery. Each post chips away at Kesha's reputation while maintaining Madison's plausible deniability. But Madison's cruelest weapon targets Kesha's academic credibility. During AP History, she approaches Mr. Henderson with perfectly rehearsed concern. I hate to bring this up, but I noticed Kesha's essay on Reconstruction uses very similar phrasing to sources I found online. Madison produces printed pages with highlighted sections. I'm sure it's just poor citation, but Yale admissions taught us to watch for academic integrity issues. Mr. Henderson's weathered face hardens as he examines the evidence. Madison has carefully selected phrases that appear in multiple historical sources, making plagiarism seem plausible. The accusation forces a formal investigation that stains Kesha's perfect record even after she proves her innocence. Madison watches from across the classroom as Kesha's confidence wavers for the first time. The girl who answered every question with certainty now second-guesses herself, afraid that speaking up will trigger more accusations. The physical escalation comes through Trevor, Madison's boyfriend and fellow legacy admission who's never faced consequences for anything. Madison mentions casually that Kesha has been getting uppity lately and needs to remember her place. Trevor interprets this as permission. After calculus class, he positions himself at the top of the marble staircase as Kesha climbs with her heavy backpack. The accidental shoulder check sends her tumbling down 8 steps, textbooks scattered, her wrist twisted painfully beneath her. "Watch where you're going, scholarship," Trevor sneers as teachers rush to help. "These stairs aren't designed for people who don't belong here." The injury forces Kesha to wear a brace for 2 weeks, making it difficult to take notes or complete assignments. But the real damage is psychological. The message that she's not safe anywhere in this building. At Uncle Marcus's gym that evening, Kesha attacks the heavy bag with vicious intensity. Her wrapped wrist throbs with each impact, but the pain feels cleaner than the humiliation burning in her chest. "You're fighting angry now," Marcus observes, watching her combinations become sloppy with rage. "Anger makes you stupid, makes you predictable." "They're trying to break me, Uncle Marcus. They want me to quit." Marcus stops the bag mid-swing, forcing Kesha to face him. "Then why are you giving them what they want? You've been running from real fights since you got to that school. These rich kids think they can play games with you because you let them." Kesha's defensive posture shifts almost imperceptibly. For 5 years, Marcus has taught her that fighting isn't about anger. It's about control, timing, choosing your moment to strike. "Prom's next week," she says quietly. Madison's planning something big. David heard them talking about making it memorable. Marcus nods slowly. Then maybe it's time they learned who they're really dealing with. Meanwhile, Madison scrolls through her prom planning notes, excitement building. She's discovered that Kesha scraped together money for a dress, probably spent months saving from some minimum wage job. The perfect opportunity for ultimate humiliation. Public, recorded, viral. Madison texts her inner circle. "Operation Charity Case goes live Friday night. Make sure everyone's phones are ready. This is going to be epic." She has no idea she's about to discover that the quiet girl she's been tormenting possesses skills that could end Madison's reign with a single, perfectly timed strike. Uncle Marcus wraps Kesha's hands with methodical precision, each loop of tape a meditation on controlled violence. The basement gym smells of sweat and determination, fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across worn equipment. "You know what's coming Friday night," Marcus says, his voice carrying 5 decades of hard-earned wisdom. "The question is, you gonna keep running, or you gonna stand your ground?" Kesha flows through shadowboxing combinations, her movements fluid despite the brace on her wrist. Jab cross hook becomes second nature when you've drilled it 10,000 times, but tonight feels different. Tonight, she's not training to release frustration, she's preparing for war. "Madison thinks she's playing chess," Kesha murmurs between combinations. But she doesn't know I've been studying her moves for months. David arrives with his laptop bag, looking nervous but determined. As Westfield's resident tech genius, he's witnessed Madison's systematic destruction of other outsiders. Tonight, he's choosing sides. I've been monitoring their group chat, David says, fingers flying across his keyboard. Madison's planning something called Operation Charity Case for prom night. She wants maximum humiliation, maximum viral potential. Kesha stops mid-punch. Show me. The screenshots reveal Madison's calculated cruelty in digital detail. Plans to accidentally spill drinks on Kesha's dress. Coordinated social media attacks during the dance. A final public confrontation designed to break Kesha's spirit in front of the entire school. She's underestimating you, David observes. Madison thinks you're just another scholarship kid who'll take whatever she dishes out. Marcus chuckles darkly. That girl has no idea who she's dealing with. Baby girl here could drop her whole crew without breaking a sweat. But Kesha shakes her head. This isn't about fighting, Uncle Marcus. This is about timing. Madison wants to destroy me publicly? Fine. Let her try. But when she crosses the line, and she will, I'll be ready. The strategy crystallizes as they talk. Kesha won't start the confrontation, but she'll finish it. She'll endure whatever Madison throws at her until the moment comes to show exactly who they're dealing with. Record everything, Kesha tells David. Every insult, every attack, every moment she thinks she's winning. When this goes viral, people need to see the whole story. Marcus nods approvingly. Smart girl. Let them think they got you cornered. Then show them what cornered animals do. Friday night approaches like a storm gathering strength. Madison's confidence grows with each passing day, her plans becoming more elaborate. She has no idea she's walking into a trap set by someone who's spent 5 years learning that the best defense is a devastating offense. The Westfield Academy ballroom sparkles with crystal chandeliers and fairy lights. 300 teenagers dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Kesha enters wearing her emerald dress, stunning despite its modest price tag, and immediately feels the weight of hostile stares. Madison's opening salvo about the Goodwill dress sets the tone for what becomes 3 hours of systematic psychological warfare. But this is only the beginning. As students migrate toward the dinner tables, Madison orchestrates Kesha's isolation with military precision. Her inner circle, Ashley, Brittany, and Caroline, spread across the seating area like a coordinated attack, claiming chairs with designer purses and jackets. Sorry, these seats are saved, Ashley chirps sweetly as Kesha approaches their table. The lie is obvious. The seats remain empty all evening. Kesha finds herself relegated to a corner table meant for faculty chaperones, eating alone while couples and friend groups laugh and take selfies around her. Madison ensures everyone notices by speaking loudly enough to carry across the room. Everyone hide your purses. You never know with scholarship kids, Madison announces, triggering nervous laughter from students who know better than to challenge the queen bee. The dance floor becomes Madison's next battlefield. Every time Kesha and David attempt to dance, Madison's crew materializes like synchronized sharks. They bump into the pair, spill drinks accidentally, and cut between them with elaborate moves that force Kesha to step back. Madison's most calculated strike comes during a slow song. She positions herself directly in front of Kesha, then steps backward onto the hem of her emerald dress. The sound of tearing fabric cuts through the music like a blade. Oops! Madison gasps with theatrical concern, examining the visible rip. Maybe you should have invested in better quality material, honey. Kesha's hands clench into fists, but she breathes deeply and steps away. David offers his jacket to cover the damage, but the humiliation burns hotter than any physical wound. The photo session provides Madison's next opportunity for cruelty. As the official photographer arranges group shots for the yearbook, Madison plays director with toxic enthusiasm. Make sure to capture everyone who actually belongs here, she instructs loudly, positioning herself and her friends in the center while systematically excluding Kesha from every frame. We want these photos to represent Westfield's true spirit. But Madison's cruelest weapon is her Instagram live broadcast. She holds her phone at the perfect angle, ensuring her followers can see Kesha sitting alone in the background. Hey everyone, check in from prom night. You guys have to see our little diversity hire trying so hard to fit in. Isn't it just precious? Madison's voice drips with false sweetness as comments flood the screen with laughing emojis and fire symbols. She's been following me around all night like a lost puppy. The live stream attracts hundreds of viewers within minutes, Madison's popularity turning Kesha's humiliation into viral entertainment. Screenshots spread across social media platforms, each share amplifying the mockery. The bathroom confrontation escalates Madison's psychological assault to new levels. As Kesha washes her hands, trying to find a moment of peace, Madison enters with her three closest allies. They form a semicircle, blocking the exit. You know what I think your problem is? Madison says, pulling out an expensive perfume bottle. You just don't smell like you belong here. She begins spraying aggressively, filling the air with cloying fragrance. Maybe this will help with that urban aroma you brought to our event. The chemical cloud burns Kesha's eyes and throat, but she refuses to cough or show weakness. Instead, she meets Madison's gaze in the mirror with unflinching calm. Are you finished? Kesha asks quietly. Madison's smile falters slightly at the lack of reaction. She expected tears, begging, some sign that her victim was breaking. Instead, Kesha walks past them with controlled dignity, leaving Madison frustrated by her inability to provoke the dramatic meltdown she craved. The crown ceremony provides Madison's platform for the most public humiliation yet. As newly crowned prom queen, she takes the microphone with the confidence of someone who's never faced real consequences. Before we continue our celebration, I want to thank everyone who earned their place here tonight, Madison begins, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. Every student knows this isn't a standard acceptance speech. Unlike some people whose mothers literally scrub our floors at school. The words hit Kesha like physical blows. Attacking her is one thing, but bringing her mother into this crosses every line of decency. Madison isn't finished. I heard your mother cleans our toilets. How fitting. Like mother, like daughter. Both belong on their knees, serving their betters. The ballroom falls into stunned silence. Even Madison's closest friends look uncomfortable with this level of cruelty. But Madison feeds off the shocked attention, her power intoxicating. Kesha stands slowly, her emerald dress catching the chandelier light as she moves to the center of the dance floor. Every phone in the room turns toward her, sensing that something monumental is about to happen. Madison, Kesha says, her voice carrying clearly despite its quiet tone. You can disrespect me all night. I've taken it. I can handle your insults, your games, your petty cruelty. But you just crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Madison's confidence wavers for just a moment before returning with vicious intensity. Oh, really? And what are you going to do about it, ghetto girl? The slur hangs in the air like a challenge. Madison takes a step forward, then another, closing the distance between them. Her fist comes up fast, aimed at Kesha's face with all the entitled rage of someone who's never been told no. But Kesha isn't there anymore. The duck comes instinctively, 5 years of training taking over as Madison's punch whistles through empty air. Kesha's response flows like water, a lightning-fast jab that snaps Madison's head back, followed by a cross that connects with surgical precision, then a hook that drops the prom queen to the marble floor like a discarded puppet. The entire sequence takes less than 3 seconds. Madison crumples, her tiara skittering across the floor as students gasp and scramble backward. Trevor charges from across the room, his face twisted with rage at seeing his girlfriend humiliated. But Kesha reads his clumsy attack like a children's book. She sidesteps his wild swing, grabs his momentum, and uses his own force to send him crashing into the refreshment table. Crystal glasses explode, punch sprays across expensive gowns, and Trevor lies groaning in a pile of destroyed catering. Kesha stands in the center of the chaos, her emerald dress unmarked, her breathing steady. Around her, 300 teenagers hold their phones like weapons, capturing every angle of the moment that will define the rest of their lives. "Stay down," Kesha says quietly, looking down at Madison's stunned form. "This is over." But it's just beginning. The videos upload instantly, spreading across social media platforms with the speed of wildfire. #Prom fight begins trending nationally within minutes as the footage reaches millions of viewers hungry for viral content. Madison Sterling, Westfield Academy's untouchable queen, lies unconscious on her own prom dance floor. And standing over her is the scholarship girl who was supposed to know her place. The girl who just announced to the world that she's done being anyone's victim. Within 12 hours, the Sterling family's damage control machine roars to life. Senator Robert Sterling's chief of staff coordinates with the family's crisis management firm, transforming Madison from aggressor to victim with surgical precision. The narrative shift begins on morning news broadcasts. Carefully edited footage shows only Kesha's devastating punches, removing all context of Madison's prolonged harassment. The chyron reads, "Scholarship student attacks classmate at prom." This was clearly an unprovoked assault by a trained fighter against a defenseless young woman, declares the Sterling family attorney during a press conference outside the courthouse. Madison Sterling weighs 98 pounds. Kesha Washington has been training in mixed martial arts for years. This isn't self-defense. It's attempted murder. The legal papers arrive at Kesha's apartment Tuesday morning. Assault and battery charges with additional counts of assault with a deadly weapon. Her fists, classified as such due to her training background. The potential sentences make her mother's hands shake. Up to 5 years in prison, permanent criminal record, automatic expulsion from Westfield, and forfeiture of her Stanford scholarship. Cable news programs dissect the story with breathless intensity. Conservative commentators frame it as evidence of urban violence invading safe suburban spaces. Liberal voices struggle to defend Kesha without seeming to condone violence. The nuanced truth gets lost in the noise of political positioning. Madison appears on morning television from her hospital bed, a neck brace adding dramatic effect to her performance. "I just wanted to welcome her to our school," she says with practiced vulnerability. "I never imagined someone could be so violent over a simple misunderstanding." The interviewer nods sympathetically. "And you had no idea about her fighting background?" "None at all. She seemed so quiet, so normal. If I'd known she was capable of this kind of brutality..." Madison's voice breaks perfectly on cue. Social media amplifies manufactured outrage. Justice for Madison trends alongside #violence. In schools, as the Sterling family's bot networks flood platforms with inflammatory content, Kesha's image appears next to mugshots of actual criminals, her academic achievements erased by carefully orchestrated character assassination. The worst betrayal comes from Westfield Academy itself. Principal Davidson, whose salary depends on maintaining relationships with donor families like the Sterlings, releases a statement condemning any student who brings violence into our peaceful learning environment. The implicit message is clear: Kesha no longer belongs. Former friends distance themselves with embarrassing speed. Students who once sought her help with homework now cross hallways to avoid her. Even some faculty members treat her like a dangerous animal who might snap without warning. "They're making me the villain in my own story," Kesha tells Uncle Marcus as they watch another news segment portraying her as a predator. "Everyone's acting like Madison didn't spend months torturing me." Marcus turns off the television with disgust. "Rich folks got money, baby girl. Money buys lawyers, buys stories, buys justice sometimes. But truth has a way of coming out." David Parker becomes Kesha's lifeline in the storm. While other students abandon her, he quietly documents everything the media ignores. His computer contains hours of footage showing Madison's systematic harassment, screenshots of the anonymous social media attacks, testimonies from other students who faced similar treatment. "I've been recording their group chat conversations for weeks," David reveals, showing Kesha his hidden files. "Madison literally planned this whole thing. She wanted you to snap so she could destroy you legally." But David's evidence faces an uphill battle against the Sterling family's resources. Their legal team includes former federal prosecutors and media specialists who know how to control narratives. Kesha's overworked public defender, managing 30 other cases, barely has time to review the charges. The psychological pressure intensifies daily. Protesters gather outside the courthouse holding signs reading, "Lock her up," and "No violence in our schools." Local news crews stake out Kesha's apartment building, turning her daily life into a circus. The breaking point comes when Kesha's mother receives a call at work. The voice is professionally polite, but the message is crystal clear. "Mrs. Washington, given recent events involving your daughter, we're going to have to reevaluate your employment status here at Westfield Academy." Carmen Washington has cleaned buildings for 15 years without a single complaint. But the Sterling family's influence extends through every institution they touch. Kesha realizes that her moment of standing up for herself will cost her family everything they've worked to build. "Maybe I should just plead guilty," Kesha whispers that night, staring at plea agreement papers. "Take the deal, do community service, let this end." Uncle Marcus looks at his niece with disappointment sharper than any physical blow. "You gonna let them win? After everything we taught you about fighting back?" "Look around, Uncle Marcus. They already won. I'm about to lose everything. Stanford, Mom's job, our future, all because I wouldn't let them disrespect my family." "You did what was right," Marcus says firmly. "And sometimes doing right costs everything. But that doesn't make it wrong." The preliminary hearing approaches like an execution date. Media coverage reaches fever pitch as Madison's supporters organize rallies demanding justice for innocent victims of violence. The narrative has solidified. Privileged white girl attacked by dangerous minority student who doesn't belong in elite spaces. But David works frantically in the shadows, preparing evidence that could change everything. His recordings of Madison's premeditated harassment campaign wait like time bombs, ready to explode the carefully constructed victim narrative. Ms. Rodriguez risks her career by quietly gathering documentation of Madison's previous targeting of minority students. 3 other families come forward with similar stories, their complaints previously buried by administrative indifference. The night before the hearing, Kesha stands before her bathroom mirror, looking at the girl who dared to fight back. Tomorrow, she'll face a system designed to protect people like Madison Sterling while crushing people like her. But Uncle Marcus was right about one thing. Truth has a way of surfacing, and Madison Sterling has no idea that her perfect victim is about to become her worst nightmare. The courthouse steps swarm with media crews and protesters as Kesha walks through a gauntlet of cameras and shouted questions. Signs reading, "Justice for Madison," wave above the crowd, but scattered among them are new voices. "Tell the whole story and stop bullying." Inside the packed courtroom, Madison sits at the prosecutor's table looking fragile and wounded, her neck brace a theatrical reminder of her supposed victimhood. The Sterling family's legal team exudes confidence, their expensive suits and polished presentations already claiming victory. Judge Patricia Williams calls the hearing to order, her weathered face revealing decades of experience separating truth from performance. This preliminary hearing will determine if sufficient evidence exists to proceed with felony charges against Ms. Washington. The prosecution opens with devastating efficiency. Security footage shows Kesha's lightning-fast combinations dropping Madison to the marble floor. Expert testimony establishes her fighting background, painting her as a trained weapon, masquerading as a harmless student. "Ladies and gentlemen," District Attorney Reynolds declares, his voice carrying the weight of moral authority, "we have clear video evidence of a brutal, unprovoked assault. The defendant used her extensive martial arts training to attack an innocent classmate whose only crime was trying to make her feel welcome. Madison takes the witness stand like a broken doll, her performance finely tuned through hours of coaching. Her voice trembles with practiced vulnerability as she recounts the sudden, terrifying violence that left her hospitalized. "I just wanted to include her in our celebration," Madison whispers, dabbing her eyes with expensive tissue. "I complimented her dress, tried to make conversation. I never expected someone could be so explosive over simple social interaction." The prosecutor guides her through carefully scripted testimony, each question designed to reinforce the narrative of unprovoked aggression. Madison's tears flow on cue, her fragility contrasting sharply with Kesha's composed strength. But then Ms. Rodriguez enters the courtroom carrying a thick folder of documentation. As the only faculty member willing to risk her career for truth, she approaches the defense table with evidence that could shatter everything. "Your Honor," Kesha's public defender announces, suddenly energized, "we have new evidence that fundamentally changes the nature of this case." Ms. Rodriguez takes the stand with quiet dignity, her testimony revealing years of documented harassment that the school administration chose to ignore. "Madison Sterling has a pattern of targeting minority students," she states clearly. "I have filed 17 separate complaints about her behavior over the past 2 years. The prosecutor objects furiously, but Judge Williams allows the testimony to continue. The courtroom atmosphere shifts as Ms. Rodriguez details Madison's systematic campaign against transfer students, scholarship recipients, and anyone who threatened her social dominance. The administration consistently dismissed these complaints, Ms. Rodriguez continues. The Sterling family's donations apparently purchased more than just buildings. They bought silence about their daughter's behavior. David Parker approaches the witness stand next, his laptop containing digital weapons that could destroy Madison's carefully constructed narrative. His hands shake slightly as he opens files containing months of evidence. "I've been monitoring their private communications since September," David testifies, his quiet voice carrying explosive implications. Madison explicitly planned what she called Operation Charity Case to publicly humiliate Kesha at prom. The courtroom erupts as David plays audio recordings of Madison's planning sessions. Her voice, dripping with calculated cruelty, fills the silent chamber. "We're going to break her publicly. Make her understand that scholarship trash doesn't belong in our world." Madison's face transforms from wounded victim to exposed predator, as her own words condemn her. The neck brace suddenly looks like costume jewelry rather than medical necessity. But David isn't finished. His computer contains the complete social media harassment campaign, fake accounts, coordinated attacks, systematic psychological warfare designed to drive Kesha from school entirely. "She created 17 different fake profiles," David continues, displaying screenshots that document months of cyberbullying. "The Westfield Charity hashtag was her creation, designed to humiliate any student she considered beneath her social status." The prosecutor's confidence crumbles as evidence mounts against his supposed victim. Madison's attorney whispers urgently in her ear, but the damage spreads like wildfire through the courtroom. Under cross-examination, Madison's perfect victim facade begins cracking. The defense attorney pushes her to explain the planning sessions, the fake social media accounts, the months of documented harassment. "I don't remember saying those things," Madison stammers, her coaching failing under pressure. "But you recognize your own voice on the recordings." Maybe we were just joking around. It wasn't serious." "You consider systematic harassment of a fellow student to be joking?" Madison's composure shatters completely. "She didn't belong there. Do you understand what it's like having some ghetto scholarship kid acting like she's as good as students who actually earned their places?" The courtroom falls silent as Madison's true nature explodes into view. Her mask of victimhood lies in pieces, revealing the entitled bigot beneath. "She thought she could just waltz in and take everything we worked for," Madison continues, her voice rising with hysteria. "Someone had to put her in her place." Judge Williams bangs her gavel as Madison realizes she's destroyed herself with her own words. The perfect victim narrative collapses in real time, broadcast live to millions of viewers who suddenly understand what really happened at Westfield Academy. But the most devastating revelation comes last. David's investigation uncovered financial records showing illegal campaign contributions from Sterling family businesses to school board members, the same officials who approved Madison's disciplinary decisions and buried harassment complaints. The corruption scandal explodes beyond the courtroom as federal investigators realize they're looking at systematic abuse of power spanning years. Madison's victimhood was just the surface of a deeper rot, infecting the entire educational system. When Kesha finally takes the stand, her testimony carries the weight of authentic truth. She speaks calmly about months of escalating harassment, her attempts at peaceful resolution, and the moment when defending her mother's honor became more important than protecting herself. "I tried everything else," Kesha says simply. "I reported the harassment. I ignored the attacks. I turned the other cheek until there were no more cheeks to turn. When she attacked my mother, I had two choices: let her destroy my family's dignity or stand up for what's right." The public gallery, initially hostile, listens with growing sympathy as Kesha's character emerges through her testimony. Here is someone who fought only when cornered, who chose to defend rather than attack, who stood up to systematic oppression with courage most adults lack. Social media explodes as the hearing's live stream reaches millions. Justice. For Kesha begins trending as viewers realize they've witnessed something profound. A young woman refusing to accept injustice, regardless of the cost. Madison Sterling, Westfield Academy's untouchable queen, sits exposed as a privileged predator whose family's corruption enabled years of abuse. And Kesha Washington emerges not as a violent aggressor, but as a defender who finally said enough. Judge Williams delivers her verdict with the gravity of someone who understands its broader implications. All charges against Ms. Washington are hereby dismissed with prejudice. The evidence clearly demonstrates that this was a case of legitimate self-defense after months of systematic harassment. The courtroom erupts in cheers from supporters who've watched justice prevail against wealth and privilege. Kesha's shoulders finally relax as the weight of potential prison time lifts from her young frame. Furthermore, Judge Williams continues, her voice cutting through the celebration, "I'm ordering a full investigation into the administrative failures that allowed this harassment to continue unchecked." The court finds credible evidence of corruption within the school board that demands immediate federal attention. Madison's legal team scrambles as their client faces community service, mandatory counseling, and civil liability for defamation. Her guaranteed Yale admission evaporates within hours as the university releases a statement about reviewing the character standards of prospective students. Trevor receives a 3-day suspension for assault, though his family's lawyers prevent criminal charges. His college football scholarship becomes uncertain as coaches worry about character issues in high-profile recruits. The Sterling family's corruption scandal dominates headlines as FBI agents execute search warrants on both their political offices and business holdings. Senator Sterling announces he won't seek re-election. His career destroyed by the investigation, his daughter's hatred triggered. 3 school board members resign within a week, their illegal relationships with Sterling interests exposed by David's meticulous documentation. The remaining board implements comprehensive anti-bullying policies and bias training for all faculty and staff. Stanford University releases a public statement reaffirming Kesha's full scholarship and adding a special designation for courage in adversity. The additional support includes mentoring, leadership development, and funding for her anti-bullying advocacy work. Westfield Academy transforms under new leadership committed to actual equity rather than performative diversity. They establish a support network for transfer students, anonymous reporting systems for harassment, and zero-tolerance policies for discrimination of any form. The most unexpected development comes 6 weeks later when Madison approaches Kesha in the school library. Gone is the designer's confidence, replaced by genuine vulnerability that seems foreign on her features. "I know you have no reason to talk to me," Madison says quietly, her voice stripped of its usual venom. "But I wanted you to know that counseling is helping. I'm beginning to understand how much damage I caused." Kesha looks up from her pre-med textbooks, studying Madison's face for signs of manipulation, but she sees only exhaustion and something that might be genuine remorse. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Madison continues. "I just wanted you to know that some of us can change. The girl who attacked you at prom, she's not who I want to be anymore." They'll never be friends, but this conversation represents something more valuable: acknowledgement, accountability, and the possibility of growth even in the darkest souls. The broader impact spreads beyond Westfield's walls. Kesha's story inspires similar cases of students speaking out against institutional bullying. The hashtag Stand Up, Don't Stay Down movement gains momentum as young people refuse to accept harassment as normal. Uncle Marcus watches his niece address a youth conference about self-defense and standing up to injustice. "You learned the hardest lesson of all," he tells her afterward. "Sometimes you have to fight for respect, but knowing when to fight and when not to, that's wisdom." Kesha balances her advocacy work with academic excellence, maintaining her 4.2 GPA while teaching self-defense classes to young girls who've faced similar challenges. Her story becomes a teaching tool for conflict resolution programs nationwide. Madison, meanwhile, begins working with underprivileged youth as part of her community service. The entitled girl who once saw poverty as a character flaw slowly learns about systemic inequality and her own privilege. Change comes slowly, but it comes. The legal precedent set by Kesha's case influences similar situations across the country. Students facing harassment now have stronger protections, and institutions face real consequences for enabling toxic environments. Westfield Academy's transformation becomes a model for other elite schools grappling with diversity and inclusion. Real change requires more than admission statistics. It demands cultural shifts that protect all students regardless of their backgrounds. As graduation approaches, Kesha stands as valedictorian, her speech focusing on the courage required to stand up for justice. She speaks about the difference between violence and self-defense, between aggression and protection, between staying silent and speaking truth. Some people will tell you to keep your head down, accept injustice, hope things get better on their own, Kesha tells her classmates. But I learned that respect isn't given. It's earned, and sometimes you have to be willing to fight for it. Madison sits in the audience, no longer the queen bee, but learning to be human. Her transformation isn't complete, but she's begun the hard work of becoming someone worthy of the privileges she was born with. The story that began with public humiliation ends with public vindication. Kesha Washington refused to stay down, refused to accept that her background determined her worth, refused to let hatred win. And in standing up for herself, she stood up for everyone who's ever been told they don't belong, don't matter, don't deserve respect. Her fists may have ended the fight, but her courage started a movement. 6 months later, Kesha walks across Stanford University's campus with the confidence of someone who's earned their place through more than test scores. Pre-med coursework challenges her intellect, while her advocacy work feeds her soul. She's discovered that standing up to one bully opened doors to fighting systemic injustice everywhere. Every Saturday, she returns to Uncle Marcus's gym, now expanded with donations from supporters inspired by her story. The basement that once housed only punching bags now includes a classroom where young girls learn that self-defense means more than physical techniques. It means believing you deserve protection. Remember, Kesha tells a group of 12-year-olds practicing basic combinations, these skills aren't for starting fights. They're for finishing them when someone else won't let you walk away with dignity. The girls listen with the intensity of students who understand that respect sometimes requires force. Among them sits Maria Santos, whose older brother was killed by bullies who knew no one would hold them accountable. Now she's learning that victims don't have to stay victims forever. The hashtag our Stand Up Don't Stay Down movement has exploded beyond Kesha's wildest imagination. Social media floods with stories from students who refused to accept harassment as normal. The hashtag becomes a rallying cry for anyone who's ever been told to just ignore it, while injustice continues unchecked. Schools nationwide implement policies directly inspired by Kesha's case. The Washington Protocol requires immediate investigation of harassment complaints and prohibits donor influence over disciplinary decisions. 17 states pass legislation protecting students who defend themselves against systematic bullying. Madison Sterling's transformation continues slowly but genuinely. Her community service at inner-city schools forces daily confrontation with realities her privilege previously shielded her from. The entitled girl who once saw poverty as personal failure now tutors kids whose brilliance shines despite systemic barriers. I used to think people like Kesha were taking opportunities away from people like me, Madison admits during a filmed interview for a documentary about the case. I didn't understand that expanding opportunities creates more for everyone. Fear made me cruel, and cruelty made me stupid. Her words carry the weight of authentic transformation, rather than scripted apology. The counseling ordered by the court became genuine therapy that stripped away years of inherited bigotry. Change is possible, even for those who seem irredeemably lost to hatred. David Parker parlayed his digital detective work into a full scholarship at MIT, where he studies cybersecurity with focus on protecting vulnerable populations from online harassment. His documentation techniques are now taught in digital literacy courses nationwide. Ms. Rodriguez received a National Education Award for courage in advocacy, her willingness to risk career for justice inspiring teachers everywhere to prioritize students over politics. The folder of ignored harassment complaints she brought to court became evidence in multiple federal investigations. Uncle Marcus watches the evening news with pride as his niece addresses a congressional hearing on bullying prevention. That little girl who came to me crying is now teaching senators about courage, he tells his wife. Sometimes the best fighters are the ones who tried everything else first. The ripple effects continue spreading. Universities implement character assessments alongside academic requirements, recognizing that privilege without responsibility creates dangerous leaders. Corporate America notices as well, with companies seeking graduates who've demonstrated moral courage under pressure. Kesha's story appears in textbooks about conflict resolution, her case study teaching future lawyers, educators, and social workers about the difference between violence and self-defense. She's become an example of how one person's refusal to accept injustice can transform entire systems. But perhaps the most meaningful change happens in individual hearts. Students who once stayed silent when witnessing harassment now speak up. Teachers who once ignored minor incidents now investigate thoroughly. Parents who once taught their children to mind their own business now emphasize the responsibility to protect others. The girl who was supposed to know her place instead redefined what belonging means. She proved that merit matters more than money, that character trumps connections, that sometimes the person everyone underestimates is exactly who changes everything. Tonight, as Kesha studies for her biochemistry exam, she receives a message from a girl in Ohio facing similar harassment. Your story gave me courage to report what's happening to me, the message reads. Thank you for showing me that I deserve respect. This is why she fought back. Not for revenge, but for recognition that every person deserves dignity regardless of their zip code, bank account, or family connections. Her fists ended one confrontation, but her courage started a revolution. Have you witnessed injustice and stayed silent? Have you been the bully or the victim? Have you ever wished you had the strength to stand up for what's right? Kesha's story reminds us that change is possible when we refuse to accept that hatred is normal. Share this story if it moved you. Comment with your own experiences of standing up or staying down. Subscribe to Black Voices Speak for more stories about underdogs who refuse to accept that their circumstances defined their worth. Because everyone deserves respect, and sometimes you have to fight for it. But more importantly, everyone deserves someone willing to fight for them. Be that person. Stand up, don't stay down. The world is watching, and it's time to show them what courage looks like. Remember Kesha Washington, the girl they tried to break who instead broke their system. Sometimes the person they underestimate is exactly the one who changes everything. Make sure you're on the right side when that change comes.